I'm a zombie! I've been bitten!
You're listening to the Survival Podcast for zombie nerds everywhere.
You're all going to die down here.
This is Zombies Ate My Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Zombies Ate My Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Murphy, and joining me, as always, is the busy zombie lord, Lou Page. How's it going, Lou?
I watched Leon kill some stuff this week, and it felt weird to not have a controller in my hand.
You know what? And it even sounded like Leon because it's the same voice actor, right?
Voice actor. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big deal. And we are going to talk about Resident Evil Infinite Darkness in just a little bit. But before that, we're going to kick off the show with some news.
The virus has completely devastated over 150 of the world's major regions and is spreading rapidly.
All right. Well, we've got, half Night of the Living Dead. So if you're a George Romero fan, we have half of that kind of news, and we have half Walking Dead news. It really wouldn't be a Zamp episode without something Walking Dead related. But we're going to kick things off with Night of the Living Dead with this. Now, Lou, you'll be able to explain it a lot better, so I will let you do so. But Night of the Living Dead 2 teaser hints at the return of Day of the Dead cast. This is not an official sequel, but might as well be considering they are playing it pretty close to the first film.
In all honesty, I'm really not sure how I feel about this. Because, yes, all three of these cast members are from Day of the Dead, and it looks like they are all coming back for this thing. But I don't know how I feel about this. Because they're the three people that survived the end of Day of the Dead. But they're calling this Night of the Living Dead 2. And
wait.
it's a...
You're telling me that these aren't characters from Night of the Living Dead?
No.
I just assumed this was Night of the Living Dead 2, the sequel. Weird. Because Night of the Living Dead is the first film, is it not?
Yes, made 1968.
But this is including cast from Day of the Dead.
This is including cast from Day of the Dead, which was made in like 1985.
Weird. Okay.
And they have an official website. They have a teaser. It's a cool idea, and I hope it's successful. My vibe is the reason they're calling it Night of the Living Dead 2 is because anybody can make a Night of the Living Dead. Its copyright is lapsed, so you can make anybody can make a movie and call it Night of the Living Dead or make a new Night of the Living Dead. There is no copyright on it, so I feel like that's what they're doing. I feel like this is technically going to be a sequel to Day of the Dead, but they're calling it Night of the Living Dead 2 because they can. And they don't have to pay for anything for the name.
Yeah, because when I think of Night of the Living Dead, I think of George Romero's first zombie film, and it's a big deal. And yeah, like the fact that it's kind of confusing, but I get it. They're like cashing in on the name because I'm guessing they couldn't call it Day of the Dead 2, right? Because he probably wised up after that first sort of copyright issue.
I think we've discussed it on the show before. There was a error in the way he wrote the copyright for Night of the Living Dead, and the way it was submitted, and it meant that the film was submitted with only like a year on it or 2 years on it or something before its copyright expired, and it became public domain. So it's one of the first film. It's one of the reasons why Night of the Living Dead was shown on so many TV stations and whatnot. Is it went from by 1975 it was pretty much public domain, and so anybody could run it on any TV channel, and they didn't have to pay royalties or anything on it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, I mean, this is pretty much a fan film, right? Like this isn't anything. I mean, it's a real movie, but I don't know.
It's a real movie, and it's sort of a fan film. And the fact that they got these three actors to come back is really cool. But I'm not going to be able to judge this till I see more. Until I see more, it sounds to me like somebody somebody's trying to cash in on some nostalgia.
Right. Well, speaking of cashing in on some nostalgia, and not necessarily in a fan film way, but this feels very official. Night of the Living Dead is getting an animated adaptation and is going to star voices of I'm probably going to butcher this name. It's got an accent on it, so is it Dooley Hill?
It's Dule Hill.
Dooley Hill. See, you know what? I'm my mother's French. I should have known that.
Yep. And he's going to be playing the role of Ben, our hero from the original Night of the Living Dead. And then alongside him, it's going to be Catherine Isabel, who plays Barbara. You'd know her from the Ginger Snap movies. Josh Duhamel is playing Harry Cooper. I can't think of what he's in. He's in a bunch of stuff. But then the rest of the cast is James Rodriguez, Will Sasso, Nancy Travis, Jimmy Simpson, and Katie Sackhoff. It's like all big name celebrities. So this tells me that they at least threw money at the voice acting for this.
Yeah. We don't have I don't even know if this key art on Screen Rant is like from the film or official or anything, but we don't have a trailer to know like what the look and feel of the film is going to be. But this is a Warner Brothers production, so I'd imagine you're going to find it on HBO Max at some point when it launches. I don't suspect it's coming to theaters. I feel like this is a straight to streaming type thing, not to like...
This is probably going to be straight to streaming, but it sounds like this is more official. And with names like this involved, you've got to guess that this is definitely more involved with the Romero estate.
Yes, yeah. And this article also kind of mentions Romero's final zombie movie, Twilight of the Dead, is currently in development and is based on a treatment that Romero wrote before his death in 2017.
I believe his son is either directing it or heavily involved in it getting released, Twilight of the Dead.
Yeah. So there's lots of Night of the Living Dead stuff coming our way in the near future. Sounds like this animated one is going to be something to look out for. Although on Zamp, we have no problem watching other levels of quality. I mean, I don't want to comment like the Night of the Living Dead 2 / Day of the Dead, homage casting. It is what it is. Like I will watch a trailer and we will talk about it on this show and we will give it that much. Like I don't necessarily want to poo-poo it before we have like some solid. Like I don't want to talk more highly about an animated show where we don't even know the look and feel of it yet. We have just the voice actors, although there's stellar voice actors.
Yeah, that to me is what gives this project definitely more oomph than the Night of the Living Dead 2. Because the Night of the Living Dead 2, they've gone out of their way to say they're not officially a sequel. And to me, if you say that, then that means that this is a fan film or this is a under an hour film that's going to be more tongue-in-cheek or just more fun, and maybe not necessarily an official sequel.
Exactly.
Whereas the Night of the Living Dead, they've done a bunch of them that have been really bad. This movie's been remade like 6 or 7 times now. There's like Night of the Living Dead 3D, and it's bad. And there's another Night of the Living Dead something that like remastered or read, and it's bad. And they're all really kind of cheesy and dumb. And the fact that they're doing an animated one, to me, speaks more to the possible quality. There's a lot more they can do with animated that could be more fun. I mean, I hate to say this, I do like the old black and white Night of the Living Dead, but it's not my favorite anymore. Mm-hmm. I've seen it so many times, and while I appreciate it for its day, and I'm not against black and white movies, I love watching old Hitchcock movies in black and white. It's just, over time, I've grown weary of it, and I've sort of developed a more of a like for the 90s remake. And I'm hoping that maybe the animated one can move that down move the 90s one down a notch, and maybe this will be the one I start watching on a regular basis. Yeah.
No, that sounds great. I agree with you. I'm not as big on black and white films as you are, although I will watch them in if it's part of the movie's original release or it's part of the artistic choices. We watched Night of the Living Dead, I think, for this podcast. It was my first watching, and I really enjoyed it. And for what that film was when it releases, it's groundbreaking. So I'm interested to see what they do and what they take away from that film, bringing it into the animated realm and seeing that final product. So this is the first time hearing of the animated adaptation. So I'm looking forward to it, and we will certainly report back when we have more information. We're going to move into the Walking Dead portion of our news. And I mean, July is a busy month. Comic-Con's coming up. And the reason I bring that up is the Walking Dead is probably going to feature heavily on Comic-Con. So I believe our next episode will be focused on Comic-Con news. It'll probably line up just so. But before we get there, I just wanted to give everyone a quick heads up that Bridge Constructor The Walking Dead is free on Epic Games until July 15th. So you need an Epic account. You don't necessarily need to have the Epic Games launcher on your computer to redeem the game. So if you want to like work up the courage to get that Epic launcher, you can just get it through the website for now and work up that courage. I like the launcher's fine. It launches apps. I think we're past the point of complaining about a bunch of launchers these days, but I do understand if folks want to keep their Steam library pristine, but it's free until July 15th. I played a bunch of it. I picked it up during the Epic Spring Sale in April, and you know, I like the idea of these bridge constructor games. So essentially what you're doing is they have Daryl, Michonne, and Eugene showing up through the story, but you're kind of like featured in this like original cast or original group that is part of the game, and you're just trying to move from point A to point B, and it's all these like fantastical setups of like, we got to build this bridge to get across this gap. And then all of a sudden it's like, we got to build a bridge that lets us across the gap, but then explodes when the bad guys come after us. And it just gets crazier from there. And Lou, I don't know if you've had a lot of experience with these bridge constructor games, but I am terrible.
I have not, but this has been one that I've been eyeing, but I haven't been willing to pull the trigger, and free makes it right up my alley.
I know. I looked through my email. It's like, I just bought this, and I looked through it, and I'm like, April, I think I spent $10 and I got my $10 of fun out of it. And I'm just really bad when it gets to the point of like, I like building the bridges and I like when I have the resources and I can just build the bridge and I'm like, I did it. But when it starts to get into like, no, we got to get across this ravine with an RV. So we're gonna have to build this big jump. And then you have to get the RV into the bottom slot and the car into the top slot. And you got to figure out how you build this bridge. So oftentimes I end up just kind of like trying to build my own thing, then scrapping it and looking at a guide. But it's still fun. I like physics puzzles. I'm just really bad at them. But as Lou said, this is the price of free until July 15th. So as of this recording, you got about a week to go in there and get it. Like I said, you don't have to have the Epic launcher installed. You can go to the website and you can redeem it. But in order to play it, of course, you will need the launcher installed. And you know, Epic has free games. I think this can't be the first free game that's popped up where you're like, oh, I got to install that. So I think at this point, I leave the installer installed just so I can collect the free games. I have not actually spent money on the Epic Store ever. Yeah, and again, you don't have to. Like the thing is, I mean, here's the thing: if Bridge Constructor: The Walking Dead is what gets you through the door, kudos to Epic in their ability to kind of like have a bunch of free, but there's been tons of free stuff there, and there's been some exclusive that I'm sure have ruffled some feathers, but at the end of the day, it's not really a conversation for this show, but I really do think that this game is worth the click of a button and worth checking out.
Yep.
So
that's all I needed to notice to sell me on it.
Exactly. But let's get into some actual Walking Dead TV show news where Fear the Walking Dead has done these fun things where they do these like little digital shorts, and you always go in and expect them to be bad, but they are actually pretty well done, and they feed right into the main show. And not to be outdone, their next spin-off is actually going to be a zombie submarine spin-off. So...
And you're sure that this is going to be like one of their little animated things? This isn't going to be them trying to put another show on TV?
Oh, No, this is like the ones.
Okay, this is gonna be like Flight 462. Okay.
Yeah, which is
Right.
the only one I remember watching was I don't think I watched Passage or the Althea tapes.
I think we watched Passage, but we gave up halfway through.
Is Passage the machete short thing?
I think it might be.
Okay, I did watch that one. That one was because weren't they like 1 minute snippets during a commercial break of Fear or The Walking Dead, and then
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that was bad, but I didn't like the setup. But I think eventually they just released it as a complete set, and you could just watch it, and it was like, oh, that was much better than in between Mountain Dew commercials and whatever AMC is putting out besides The Walking Dead, because that's all they advertise is their own stuff.
Fine with this. I'm fine with this, knowing that it's one of these digital shorts or digital series. I just don't know if I care. We already know the submarine was there. We already know that what's his name was a member of the original crew. I don't know what else there is to say.
Well, I think that's a good point, and one that I really didn't think about until just now is so yeah, this is going to be a series based on the submarine, the USS Pennsylvania. And the guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy, Teddy's right-hand man, he was on the ship, so we get to see that story, which could be interesting.
Yep, could be interesting. Don't know if it will be. I just don't know if I care enough. I'd rather just see the main show, but that's just me.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely not replacing that main show. It's more of a hey, let's bridge the gap until we have more Fear the Walking Dead to talk about. And we'll likely have Fear the Walking Dead to talk about soon. But Lou, we got our first sort of real teaser trailer. Well, I say it's a teaser trailer for season 11 of The Walking Dead, which is back August 22nd, I believe. And this teaser is a teaser trailer. It's a lot of like flashes of characters and stuff.
I was going to say, it's literally a teaser. I was wondering if they were going to show us anything from the season, and they're not. It's literally characters holding bows, holding weapons, holding guns, and then cutting to like the bad guys in their white uniforms, and then a guy in a red uniform. So I'm assuming he's the bad guy boss.
Yeah, he's a big deal.
And that's it. And I was like, okay, I get it. You're trying to get me excited. I'm glad this was only a minute long, because if you'd made me sit through longer than a minute, I'd be annoyed.
It's essentially a hype trailer to get us ready for the real trailer that's going to be coming in a couple weeks at Comic-Con. And the Stormtrooper in red is not Captain Phasma. It's Mercer, I guess, which is a big character. Big point of shame for us, Lou and I. We did not read the Walking Dead comics. That's Bob's corner of the show, but Mercer is a big comic book character, and I guess it was a big deal that they revealed him for the first time in the teaser. But for you and I, it's kind of like cool armor. He looks great.
Not only that, but I mean, as someone who hasn't read all the way up to the end, I am familiar with a lot of the plot points, and I've read enough spoilers, but I can't remember people's names. So I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be the big bad guy for next season. Okay, whatever.
Yeah. I don't think Mercer's come up, like he's not in line with sort of like the Negans and the governors of the world. So I don't even know if he's a bad guy. He might just be a guy that is there. So we'll find out together. And if there are comic book readers out there that want to chime in on how important that character is and whether they're looking forward to the Commonwealth sort of appearing in The Walking Dead. I know like our biggest anticipation of Comic-Con news in a couple weeks is the continuation of Beyond The Walking Dead. Is it called Beyond The Walking Dead, or am I just like forgetting what it's called? Beyond's in there, is it not?
It's the World Beyond.
Okay, it's just the World Beyond. They did it with Fear, and then they completely threw out their like naming convention for this.
It's called The Walking Dead World Beyond.
No, that's bad. They should have called it Beyond The Walking Dead, and then it still wouldn't have made any sense. It would have made as much sense as World Beyond as this. Anyways, we got a lot of show.
It's not like anybody calls these shows by their name. They call The Walking Dead TWD. They call Fear the Walking Dead Fear. And they call The World Beyond that crappy show with teenagers.
Well, Lou, there is a show that we watch that has practically, I would say, no teenagers. There's maybe like 1 or 2 teenagers in this whole show, and it is called...
There's one kid. There's one kid.
Yes, thank you. There's one kid, this poor traumatized kid, and we are going to talk about Resident Evil Infinite Darkness.
I'm sorry, Market? You're making bioweapons for profit.
We can make soldiers who never die. As long as they take regular doses of the inhibitor, they can fight longer and harder than ever before. It's revolutionary, don't you think?
You do that to people for money. What kind of monster are you? No, I take it back. You're just f***ing nuts!
Lou, Resident Evil has returned in animated form, and Netflix is the exclusive distributor this time around. We are talking about Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. This is a new Netflix animated series that launched yesterday.
Yesterday.
And tells the story between Resident Evil 4 and 5, starring Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield. There are 4 episodes of 25 minutes each, and Lou, we watched the whole dang thing.
Yes, we did. And I gotta say, they called it a show. I'm not sure why they called it a show. It's an animated movie that's been cut into 4 pieces.
Yes.
You can literally tell where it's not really the end of a chapter. It's literally they just went, "Yep, this is where we're gonna end episode 1," and it like ends right after like something major happens, and they just went, "Yep, cut it here."
Yeah, well, that's a good starting point, because my first impression as well was they cut a 2-hour movie into TV episodes, but it really felt like there were moments in each episode where they kind of went back to the beginning moment with the same footage, and it really felt like they were like inserting those flashbacks because they didn't feel necessary. I watched it as if it was a movie, and it felt very jarring to keep going back.
It felt like they tried to artificially make this about 20 minutes longer than it was.
Yeah, not a deal breaker though.
Not a deal breaker. It's fine. I will admit I was watching this in the background while I was working. Mm-hmm. So I mean, every time it would get to a scene where they were like showing me something they'd already showed me before, I'm like, all right, cool, back to work. But for the most part, I thought for a CGI movie, this is probably the best that Capcom's done. They've done 3 in the past before this, 3 or 4.
Yeah,
and the first one has not aged well visually. The plot is really complicated and kind of stupid. The second one is better looking, but poorly acted. And then I think the third one that they did is just kind of meh all around. Like, I think we talked about it on the show, and I don't think it was enjoyable. Like, it's super convoluted, and Chris is the hero, and I think he bumps into Leon at some point, and it's really complicated. You don't even know why the bad guy is the bad guy. It's just some dude, and he's doing like this super mysterious like guy in a suit thing, and you're like, I don't care. and this doesn't feel like that. This feels like they were intentionally not just trying to. This feels like Netflix put some money into this to help them.
Yeah, story-wise, it feels...
It's not amazing. The story is not amazing. By the end of the first episode, I knew all 3 of our bad guys.
Yeah.
I knew exactly who they were. In fact, as soon as the guy that was telling the president we needed to attack China was like, and China was a problem, as soon as he spoke, I went, he's going to be our real bad guy. Yeah. I said, they're going to make us think that one of these other guys working with Leon is a bad guy. And maybe they are, but they're going to be working for this guy, and this guy's going to be the bad guy. And it's funny how he looks and sounds like Donald Rumsfeld. Okay, and literally that's exactly what they did. The guy that looks and talks like Donald Rumsfeld is the bad guy. And as the movie goes on, you realize just how nuts he is, and you're like, all right, let's kill this guy. And then they don't.
You heard it in the in the clip, and here's the thing. What I was gonna say about the story is like the strongest point going for the story, and I think what makes the whole film as a video game attached being, like, this is, I think Capcom has said, is considered canon within the mainline Resident Evil games, is that they attach it very firmly to the end of Resident Evil 4. They address Leon as this this agent who saved the president's daughter. And I mean, it's right here, you know, in this clip where they introduce Leon in this way that's like, oh, this is the Leon from Resident Evil 4, and everything he did in 4 is being referenced in these moments early on in the film.
And I think that's one of the things I did really like about it, is when Leon is coming by helicopter because he's been off on like a secret president or something. Mm-hmm. And when he arrives, there's 3 other agents, and there's like the rookie agent, the hardened veteran, and then like the girl agent. You're like, all right, we got our generic hero cast. All right, cool. And as soon as they started talking about China, I was like, oh, the girl is Asian. She's going to be somehow tied in to the China thing. And lo and behold, she was. And I was like, all right, cool. And the big broody guy, he knew too much, and he killed those zombies way too fast. Almost like he knew they were zombies before they were zombies. And I was like, yeah, he's going to be bad guy. And lo and behold, he was a bad guy. And the rookie guy, I was like, somehow they're going to make use of him by the end of this, and he's going to do something to help save the day. Lo and behold, he convinces the president to not make a bad speech. I was like, all right, cool.
Yes.
Like literally the first 20 minutes, I was like, yeah, I know exactly how this whole thing is going to unfold. And it did. It unfolded exactly the way I expected it to. And that's not to say it's bad. It's just predictable. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was like watching a pretty decent CGI anime movie, basically.
Yeah. I mean, the visuals are just amazing, what they've been able to pull off here.
It does look really good. I mean, you can tell there's CG if you pay attention, but when they played a trailer for this between something I was watching on YouTube and my wife was in the room, and it kind of like brushed past, and she was like, whoa, is that the Resident Evil movie you were talking about? And I was like, no, that's the CG movie. And she went, that's CG? And I mean, it was only like a 30-second clip, so she didn't get really good visual look at it. But it was good enough that at first glance she was like, are those real people? And then oh no, they're not. Okay. But that tells you that the visuals were good. This is on par with basically whatever the current graphics are on most video games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you got a CG cutscene in Resident Evil 8, it probably was using this same engine.
Yeah, I agree. I think they really nailed it, and it feels like they ripped the models from Resident Evil 2 Remake and aged them and gave them new costumes, and it was like, all right, we're done.
The only thing I found disappointing with this is that I didn't feel like they used Claire to the best to the best degree. I thought her story was one of the more interesting stories going on. Mm-hmm. Everything with Leon is sort of like to get you to the point where there's action, to get you to the point where there's action, to get you to the point where there's some kind of action. And Claire is kind of like doing the murder mystery thing. She knows there's a story. There was a zombie outbreak in some small country, Middle Eastern country, and she's part of a group trying to establish schools and kind of bring the country back from the brink of disaster. And she finds a kid who saw zombies, and she's like, wait a minute. And so she goes back to the U.S. to kind of figure this stuff out. And then she finds a bunch of soldiers that have all committed suicide. Gee, why did they commit suicide? And then she finds out this other stuff, and she kind of goes down this rabbit hole of like solving the murder mystery. And right about the time you know that she's figured it out, guys show up to take her, And literally, she hits a guy over the head with a lamp, and it does nothing. And then another guy tases her, and that's pretty much her only fight scene. And I was like, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's all we got? Like, it was kind of weak. And then she gets tied to a chair for like the rest of the movie at that point, like the whole last episode. And then at the last minute, Leon doesn't even know she's there. Like, she thinks for a second, like, Leon, you're here to rescue me. And he's like, I didn't even know you were here. And I was like, okay. She just felt like she was being used to kind of give us more backstory. And I thought that it would have been better to have had her maybe on the run and then get kidnapped or something. You know what I mean? Like, they took her real fast. And she didn't put up that much of a fight.
It really seems like they included her character as an afterthought to have the Resident Evil 2, heroes in this film.
Yeah.
But their focus was Leon. I mean, we'll go through clips before we wrap up the segment, but I think that a lot of the clips I got were Leon, because he's got the most moments where he's saying dumb shit, while he's doing cool stuff,
But okay, so I need to explain my favorite thing in this entire movie, and it was the thing I couldn't stop laughing about, and not because it was cheesy, just because I thought it was really clever. So some congressman or senator or somebody that answers to the president is bitten, and he gets turned into a zombie, and then the rookie agent protecting the president shoots him in the chest like 5 times, and then the guy pins him to the ground, and he's like, ah! And then Leon blows the guy's head off, and Leon goes, gotta shoot him in the head. And in the meantime, that this guy is like not necessarily important to the plot, but that like he was just talking to the president as somebody like 10 minutes ago. And literally the next scene after the whole incident in the White House is over is Claire showing up being like, I need to talk to that guy. And his aide is like, he's on a long vacation. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of these moments where I think they've structured a really good Resident Evil story, because it has the mystery, it has the the U.S. military here is partnered with. They don't mention Umbrella by name, as from what I recall. They do say like, oh, we're working with a chemical or a bioweapons corporation. It's Umbrella, but like I don't think they outright say the name. But you have
to remember this Tricell, because this is going to tie right into. This is between 4 and 5, and Tricell is the company that Chris and the other. Whatever that
I can't remember
BSAA agent that they're investigating in 5 is, they think Tricell is the company trying to clean up Umbrella, and then come to find out it's run by a bunch of Umbrella executives. And you're like, oh, okay. And I think that this was hinting at Tricell.
Okay. Interesting. Well, it's one of those things where the U.S. military is using some sort of T virus to infect the citizens and cause an outbreak in I think it's Panamistan. So it's far
not
as I know,
a real country.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's made up. And so the U.S. military is using this weapon. Obviously, the president doesn't know this because plot reasons, and like it sort of comes up as like, oh, he's trying to create these perfect soldiers. Like, he's definitely a madman. And there's like this moment on the sub where these it's a really gross but like works moment where these rats are like coming out of these bodies, but they never go back to it. Are the rats part of the virus, or?
All I kept thinking was that was their try to tie in with Las Plagas from Resident Evil 4.
Oh, okay. Interesting. But they never go back to it. Like,
nope.
It's there present in the sub, which I get, because like then you have these smaller rodents that can get into all these crevices and move throughout the sub more easily. I get that side of it. But they don't even allude, like, I'm assuming that the U.S. military guys who go in at the beginning, like, in the sort of flashback, they were already infected, and then when they some of them when they just die. Like, I'm assuming they were already infected, right? Because the helicopter crashes and they say, "Oh, don't follow in. Like, we need you to leave them be." I felt like that was like the military, like sending in the virus. But obviously they then get bit when they go in to rescue them, and they have to use these like inhibitors or something. So it's a virus that can be, staved off or something.
It basically, it's like they need a vaccine every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Or they're gonna turn into a monster.
Which reminded me of, is it Dead Planet or Death Planet, or Attack of the that movie we watched with it was the Rodriguez film.
Oh,
What's it called? Attack of the Dead.
You calling it whatever it is you're calling it is messing it up for me.
You know what? We did clips for it. I should have it here on the soundboard somewhere. It was Planet Terror.
Planet Terror. You're calling it Attack, and I'm like, no, the other one's called Death. I was remembering the other. Death Proof was the other part of the Grindhouse.
I know.
And so I keep thinking Death Proof, and I'm like, no, that's not it. It's Planet Terror, yeah.
That's all I could remember was the Death Proof. Yeah, so like there's a little bit of that to it, and I don't really remember that in Resident Evil lore, although like there's a lot in there, of course.
I mean, I'm not gonna tell listeners to run right out and watch this, but if you're looking for something to kill 2 hours, you could definitely do worse than this.
Yeah, if you're a Resident Evil fan, I feel like it's worth checking out.
It's worth watching, and I have a funny feeling that because this is considered canon, I have a funny feeling we're either going to get another one of these animated movies, or they might tie some of this stuff into the next game.
Maybe. Yeah, it really felt like they were touching on it with the big bad who not only shows up at the end, but you see it with the original person they saved that was infected, and it's kind of crystallizing. And then you see the bad guy at the very end, or I guess he's not really a bad guy. He's more like he's got his own way of wanting to deal with the issues at hand in a bad way. He wants to sort of burn the world down, but not that great. But he's kind of crystallizing, and that reminded me of the way the enemies die in Resident Evil Village. They turn into crystals. So again, all left unexplained in the movie. There's a lot sort of just left there sitting, but if you're a Resident Evil fan, like you've kind of come to expect that. They really only explain the mission critical stuff, and everything else is like Resident Evil 4. There's just tons of stuff in that game that's not explained at all, Well,
okay, and so the other thing too is I kind of figured that just about every character we got introduced to was going to die along the way. Otherwise, they would have made cameos in other games along the way. And so the Asian chick dies. The big the big broody guy, he gets turned into a monster, and then he dies. And then I was surprised the Donald Rumsfeld guy lives, but he's infected. So you never see who it is. Somebody hands him an inhibitor, and they're like, "Now you're gonna have to like do as we say." And I was like, "Yep, that's about what I expected. I expect to see his character make a cameo in another animated movie, or maybe get alluded to in another game."
Yes, this is alluded to as well. It's labeled as Season 1. Obviously, we know Netflix has a partnership with Capcom to develop Resident Evil content with the live-action series coming.
Honestly, this got pumped out really fast. So I really wouldn't be surprised if we get another one of these every year.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. I like Resident Evil. I enjoy, using my Netflix subscription for stuff other than Paw Patrol. So I'm a big fan of more of this.
This was a fun watch, but it wasn't like groundbreaking or anything.
Yeah,
as a Resident Evil fan, I was like, "Oh, cool! We got more Leon, we got more Claire, and we're killing zombies. Cool." In fact, I was really taken back, and I really liked the fact that the whole opening is basically zombies in the White House, and I was like, and they handled it really well. In fact, I was explaining to somebody the other day that that's what happens in the opening, is that it's like zombies in the White House, and they're like, after Raccoon City, you'd think that the White House would have it under control, and I was like, actually. The scene is only like 5 minutes long. They literally clear out all the zombies in the White House in like 10 minutes.
Yeah. It felt like not a great threat, but they still they still nail that sort of like initial unknown, what are we dealing with? And it was really well done. And there's a lot to, the first episode that's going to give you an idea of exactly what you're going to experience. Like Lou said, there's much less Claire in the first episode and throughout the series. I still think...
I say there's a lot of Claire in the first episode, and then substantially every episode after there's a little bit less, and then in the last episode she's in about half the episode.
Yeah. I still think the best sort of post to Claire that I've played, I've not played Code Veronica, but I still really liked her main character presence in Resident Evil Revelations 2 Episode 1 Penal Colony, which is the only episode we played on the show. And for listeners, longtime listeners, you'll remember that we just kept saying that over and over and over again. And for some reason, I thought it was funny.
I'll be honest. I'm kind of getting into the hankering to play a Resident Evil game. And I've played through 1, I've played through 2, I've played through 3. I've played through 4 so many times, it's pathetic. And I've played through 5 maybe once or twice. I will never play 6 again. But part of me's going, there is Revelations and Revelations 2. You never did finish Revelations 2. You should go back and play Revelations.
Yeah. Resident Evil Revelations 2. That was and they've been re-released. I think they are both available as a package on PS4, PC, and Xbox One. So like they run on modern hardware. I think they're even on the Switch. You could probably play them on your Switch.
I'm not gonna play it on my Switch. I own both on PC already.
Look, the best way to go back to a game is to buy it again, because then you have some monetary reason to do it.
No, I'm a cheapskate. I will just go back and play the game I already bought.
Yeah. No, I understand. I definitely agree with you there. I'd probably go back and play on the original platform where I've owned it. But
it's funny too. It's funny too because I remember the original Revelations was made for the 3DS, and they really did a pretty good job up-resing and redoing the graphics for PC.
I don't even want to tell you what platforms I own Revelations on, because I'm pretty sure it's on definitely the original 3DS. And I remember buying because the 3DS only had the one control stick, which was a problem for tank controls. But we may do, but I bought the little attachment for the 3DS that gave you the extra thumbstick, and it was not so, and it was only for the small 3DS, not the 3DS XL, which I quickly upgraded to once it came out. But it was like, it made the 3DS kind of like a boat. You like placed it in it, and it was through the IR sensor. So there was this delay. It wasn't like connected through Bluetooth or a direct connection. It was sending the signal through the IR sensor. So there was a bit of a delay. And I remember that being a pain in the butt. But I also own Resident Evil Revelations on the Wii U. So
I can't express how many times I've bought 4.
Yeah. Well, you could do it again on Oculus if you want.
No. At this point, I've bought Resident Evil 4 at least 5 times.
Yeah, I think GameCube and Wii for sure.
I had the original GameCube. Then I got it. Someone gifted it to me on PS2. Because they didn't realize I had the GameCube. And then I bought it again on Wii. Then I bought it again on PC. And I think I've got it on something else now, too. And I was like... And it was gifted to me, I think. And I was like, oh. I've played and beat it on every single one of them.
I've only beaten it maybe once and a half. I definitely beat it on GameCube, and then I played it on Wii.
The question is, have you unlocked the Unlimited Magnum?
Unlikely. Those games I usually just play once, and I move on.
I have unlocked everything in Resident Evil 4. Everything. I literally can play through the game and like one-shot everything the whole way through the game.
Wow. Well, that's impressive. I mean, before we wrap up, I do have some clips here that I'll play for you, and I'll warn you ahead of time. They're all Leon and Leon related, and really it goes back to your comment that Claire did not have a lot. Her best moments were the moment you saw in the clip where she's sort of breaking up the monologue from the bad guy. And she has a moment at the end where she basically tells Leon he's a dick and walks away. but that was, that was the end of the movie, so I didn't want to play it. But I do have these clips for Leon. This one is called That Leon.
Leon isn't the guy who saved the president's daughter?
Yep. That Leon. He's more than qualified.
Qualified? More like lucky. The only reason he's the golden boy now is because he was in the wrong place at the right time.
So that gives you an idea of the main characters. That's where they're waiting for Leon to show up. And you get a sense that, not a lot of people think or know Leon to be this hero, even though us as the players know him to be a hero. From
my
his games.
my favorite moment though is that none of them know about him being a cop in Raccoon City. and then at one point he tells somebody, "Yeah, I survived Raccoon City," and they're like, "Are you unkillable or something?"
Yeah. The guy who survived, the hero of Panamistan, is like, "Whoa, you were there? No way! No one survived that." But like, there are literally two people who did survive that city being nuked in this movie. So yeah, it is quite fitting. The moment that Lou alluded to with of course it's a zombie film, you got to shoot him in the head, guys. Come on.
Leon?
Shoot him in the head. That stops him.
So, pretty much sets up the rest of the film where now everybody is a perfect headshot. So, not many people miss after he tells them shoot him in the head, because that's what it takes to be a.
But my favorite moment, while that's going on is they're using pistols, and then when they realize that there's more zombies, they go into a thing and they come back out with machine guns, and they've got machine guns, and then all of a sudden the machine guns are on their back and they're holding pistols again, and I was like, why are you doing that?
Conserving ammo. I don't know. There is a badass moment where Leon, is doing some John Wick stuff with the zombies and the pistol, and he follows that up with
he shoots one without even looking, and I was like, oh, they doing that.
You can't even do that in the video games, but he's able to do it here. I guess that's why they haven't included Leon in any Resident Evil games afterwards. And yes, I am ignoring the fact that he was in 6. So as we all do. He had some really cheesy lines.
His moment in 6 is the only playable thing in that game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think it's one of the few that I actually played. So, yeah, here's some more cheesy lines here.
Rest in peace, assholes.
So there's a lot of that, and my personal favorite, where the rats show up, is this one.
Wish I had some cheese.
So that's a quick one. I don't know if you heard that.
Wish I had some cheese.
He's saying, wish I had some cheese. So after killing a bunch of rats. Or no. Yeah. This is after the rats show up en masse for the second time.
Yeah, and they're chasing him.
Yeah, and he's like, he has the time to say, wish I had some cheese. He's not even running away. He's saying the line, staring at all these rats.
And then he runs away. Yeah.
And, yeah, it's peak Leon. It's the Leon you remember from Resident Evil 4. He's more like self-serious in the second one because he's like this rookie cop and he's trying to impress everybody. But in 4, he is wisecrack. He's aware of his situation and he's just trying to get out alive while also having some quick quips. So we get more of that Leon here. But yeah, he had some lines, Lou, and those were the ones I captured. That is pretty much going to wrap up our chat on this Netflix original series. You can watch all the animated ones. They're all on Netflix. They pop up after you finish this one. Lou gave you a sort of a rundown of which ones you should check out. But again, the first one was a 2008 film. So just keep that in mind when you're perusing the Netflix collection. Coming up on Zamp, we've got, as I alluded to, I'm using that a lot. As we discussed, The Walking Dead returns at the end of August, so we've got a bit of summer fun to fill in as we move our way into August. We have Comic-Con next week. We have a couple of listener emails, listener suggestions that we're going to check out over the next couple weeks as well. And there might be some other surprises along the way. Maybe a movie. Maybe we do like a movie. It's been a while since we've talked about some zombie films. I'm sure Lou's got like a laundry list of homework he wants me to do, even though I've been doing the show for how long? I feel like I've caught up. I feel like I'm good now, right?
No.
No?
You're never going to be caught up.
All right. Well, if you've got
I have
some
an
winners,
encyclopedia of zombie films sitting next to me on this desk, whereas I've seen like 70% of this book, and you've seen like 10. So trust me, there's more for you to watch.
all right. Well, you heard it here first. There's definitely more for me to watch, as Lou has purchased a book specifically to torture me. So we'll go with that. If you want to, find more Zamp, find more discussions, go to our Discord. Our Zamp Discord is at bit.ly/Zamp Discord. I want to thank the patrons over at patreon.com/zombiesatemypodcast. Every dollar you put into that Patreon goes right back into the show to help it make it the best zombie podcast. We can say that, the best zombie podcast, I think. If there are others, certainly I know there are others, but it's a podcast. There's lots of podcasts. But if you want to support this one, best way to do it is through Patreon, and it pays for hosting and all that fun stuff to keep the lights on. We thank our patrons. You can go to our website, zombiesatemypodcast.com. You can email us, info@zombiesatemypodcast.com. You can follow us on the socials, Twitter and Facebook. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at R. Murphy, and Lou is at BusyZombieLord. And quick shout out to Joel Duggan for the artwork. You can check out his stuff at joelduggan.com. Lou, as always, I want to conclude the show with your fantastic knowledge of zombies.
Remember what Leon said. You have to shoot them in the head.
Ooh, it rhymed too.
Leon?
Shoot him in the head. That stops him.
Like I said before, that outfit doesn't suit you.
I'll stop this.